here in Zolder for the second round of the 2013 FIA GT Series. The first race in Nogaro was an absolute thriller, with rain coming into play as well, which may well happen here at this famous Belgian circuit with its notorious Belgian weather. But there was one man who stole the headlines in Nogaro, Sebastian Loeb. He won his debut race. Let's see how.
Box, stop. Now try on the right side. Quick job, Sebastian. Quick job.
Starting from pole position after winning the qualifying race, Loeb held the lead into the main race, which was started behind the safety car because of the wet conditions. There was some bumping and some boring, Carlos Vieira holding a very impressive slide after he came under attack from Caca Bueno, but up at the front it was a battle between Loeb and Meyer Melnoff. Matthias Stumpf got pushed onto the grass coming down towards the hairpin in some fantastic racing, but that was the key moment of the race. Sebastian Loeb taking off his seatbelts before he was allowed to, and later on that would see him be given a drive-through penalty, even though he came out second to René Rast, who was now in the lead. Alvaro Parent tapped the back of Rast, which sent Rast spinning down the order, but because of the McLaren's penalty, Rast would then get past again. Laurens Vanthoor fought his way through to take third place overall, taking 2 places on the final lap. René Rast and Nicky Meyer-Melnoff crossed the line to win the race. They were then handed a 30-second penalty for not turning off their engine at the pit stops, which meant that WRT came over with a 1-2. Edvard Sandström and Frank Stippler winning the race, with Ortelli and Laurens Vanthoor finishing in second. The BMW Team Brazil squad enjoyed a decent weekend in their first outing in the FIA GT Series, but Caca Bueno is now hoping for more.
In the first part of the lap, we have a lot of fast corners. The BMW go well in this part of circuits. In the last part of circuits, not so good because not so much power, but I believe in a good weekend.
The HTP Gravity Charoux squad had an excellent weekend in Nogaro, and coming here to Zolder, Alan Day and Maximilian Buch are second in the championship. Day, though, isn't as confident this weekend.
I'm not expecting too much result here in Zolder because it's not really fit, the Mercedes car here, but actually it looks okay. I'm looking forward for good results also, like Nogaro.
There's quite a lot of Belgian drivers in the field, and 2 of them are at Phoenix Racing. Anthony Kumpen is a regular Spa 24-hour racer, and he's joined by Enzo Eid.
For us, Zolder is our home track, so Anthony won 6 times the 24 hours of Zolder, and I won it 1 time, so we have a lot of fans over here, and for sure we want to have the best possible result over here.
While Sebastian Loeb and Alvaro Parent took the headlines, it was a difficult weekend for the sister car at Sebastian Loeb Racing. Mike Parisi and Andreas Zuber are looking to put things back on track here in Belgium.
In Nogaro we were super quick, and in the end we had no results, so it was quite frustrating. And here I think we're also quite quick. Without all the problems what we had in Nogaro, we should be ready for a podium.
WRT Audi dominated in Nogaro with Edvard Sandström and Frank Stippler leading the championship here in Belgium. But Laurens Vanthoor can see the Zolder circuit every time he brushes his teeth in the morning, so he should be strong.
It's a home race for me, it's a home race for the Belgian Audi Club, for WRT, so it's an important weekend for us. I think we are pretty good. It's difficult to predict, we have to wait and see tomorrow qualifying, and from then on I hope we can do a good job. We will try our best.
A new entry for this weekend is the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini of Peter Cox and Stefan Racina. The Lamborghini should be strong around this Zolder circuit, as Hans Reiter, the team boss, explains.
In the past years, Lamborghini was always very strong on this circuit. I must say it's our favorite circuit. Today we only reached 5th position, which was a bit of a disappointment. We are competitive, but do we really go for the podium? It will be a hard fight, and I'm much less optimistic than I have been yesterday.
The number 7 Road Drive Competitions car are a little bit disappointed with how their machine is performing here in Zolder, but Matthias Stumpf is still confident they can get something out of the weekend.
is the best for us to rain in the track, then the track be dry. We know we have a good car on the first part of the circuit, and I think this will give some advantages to us get a good result here.
The biggest surprise from Nogaro was probably the Pro-Am pairing of Cesar Campanico and Carlos Vieira in their Audi R8. Campanico is hoping for more success this weekend.
I think we have a good pace. We are in the top 3 Pro-Am, which is our aim. The race, the important is to keep good points for the Pro-Am category.
The Grasser Racing Lamborghini was a late addition to the entry in Nogaro, and as a result, things were a little bit difficult to get used to. Harry Procek knew the car already, but for Baumann it was a different story.
I'm used to it because I drove last year with Leipert also in the EM, and but for Dominic it was completely new. I think for the first time we did a good job, especially in the rain. It works well, so hopefully we can do here the same good job than in Nogaro.
RJ and Nissan, running the GT Academy drivers, will be looking for another strong performance. Wolfgang Reip is at his home circuit, and he's joined by the Russian Mark Shulshitsky.
For us it's hard, you know, it's first time in this championship in this car, so every time we learn a lot, and now we learn track in Zolder, which is very difficult. I hope it will be okay for us.
AF Corse Ferrari didn't race in Nogaro because Fabio Anidi crashed into the pit wall in qualifying. Naturally, he's going to be hoping he can perform a little better here in Belgium.
We are positive from tomorrow. We expect something good. I'm not sure because in the last free practice we didn't try with the rain. So we expect something good, but we will see.
Seyfarth Motorsport have ended a second Mercedes SLS this weekend. Paulo Bonifacio is a regular GT driver, and Duda Rosa is the reigning Brazilian GT champion.
I feel like I'm home. I like to race here. It's a very professional races and drivers and teams. We do the rest of this championship, the next 5 races. Let's see if you can get some victories or the title.
So more than 20 drivers will be fighting to claim top honours in both their class and overall. It's set to be a thrilling weekend of racing. Good afternoon and welcome to the qualifying race for the second round of the FIA GT Series of 2013. Our trip around the world takes us to Belgium next here at the Zolder circuit, and you can see the grid forming down there behind the pace car, and what an exciting afternoon of racing it's set to be. My name's Jack Nichols. Alongside me here in the commentary box is a man who knows Zolder very well, John Watson. And John, as the grid girls leave the grid, we are left with a Lamborghini on pole position.
Yes, and a very strong performance it was from Peter Cox and Stefan Rosina. They went out and blitzed the field initially. They were caught up towards the end of the session, but that Lamborghini looks very strong indeed in absolutely glorious conditions. There you see Zolder, as you don't often see it. Clear blue sky, dry racetrack. The only thing is the biting wind is still there, and those poor grid girls, they must be absolute. I'm not saying what they're freezing, but you can imagine what it's like for them on the grid.
So this is a little trip down the grid. You can see the WRT Audi there on the right-hand side. That is car number 12 of Nicky Meyer-Manoff and René Rast. They're now in the Pro Cup as opposed to being in the Pro-Am in Nogaro. And then the 2 Team Brazil BMWs. And then the big news story, really, right at the back of the grid, you can see the McLaren coming up on the right-hand side. That is Sebastian Loeb and Alvaro Parent. Alvaro will start that car. They qualified second on the grid, but a mistake, however you want to call it, they had a boost issue problem right at the back.
Yes, they had this problem, of course, at Nogaro, but second time, not quite the same problem, and the team say not actually our issue, was something more from the McLaren side of the garage. Nevertheless, it means great disappointment for Sebastian Loeb, who had such a wonderful debut in Nogaro 3 weeks ago alongside Alvaro Parent. But that car will move forward. He has to be careful, of course, on this opening lap, at the pace that McLaren doesn't get him involved in traffic where it is very tight, particularly bunching up into the first chicane immediately behind the pits.
So the green flag lap begins as the cars wind their way around this Zolder circuit, which has been, well, we've got a problem there towards the back for one of the Nissans, unfortunately. It looks as though Wolfgang Reip has managed to, oh, he's got it off the line now. Good stuff from Wolfgang. And Whether he will now have to start at the back of the grid or not, that's one for the race directors to decide, but he has managed to get it going in the end. So as the cars come around turn 2 and 3, on pole position, we have Stefan Racina in that number 24 Lamborghini Blancpain Reiter engineering car. Alongside him on the front row of the grid is going to be Sergei Afanasiev in the number 2 HDP Gravity Charouz car. Here's a look at the grid in actual fact, so you will see Racina on pole, Afanasiev alongside him in the Mercedes. The second row of the grid sees Laurens Vanthoor at his home race alongside Mike Parisi in the first, Sebastian Loeb racing McLaren. Frank Stippler and Anthony Kumpen are then behind. Anthony Kumpen, also another Belgian driver. René Rast, expect to see him come through the field a little bit more because the Audis were a little bit surprisingly slow when it came down to it in qualifying. Alex Buncombe and Kaká Bueno completing the top 10, the first of our Brazilian drivers. He's closely followed by his teammate Sergio Jimenez and Cesar Campanico, the Portuguese driver. The only Ferrari out of Fabio Onidi is starting there in 14th place. Karun Chandok will start in 15th place, the ex-Formula 1 racer alongside Matthias Stumpf. Wolfgang Reip we saw get away, and Paolo Bonifacio making his debut to the series, a second Mercedes SLS being entered by Seyfarth Motorsport. That machine is all orange, very, very easy to spot, and Alvaro Parent will bring up the rear. So, the cars make their way down through the chicanes that punctuate this circuit and have become kind of synonymous really now with the Zolder circuit.
Yeah, it's inevitable at racetracks, and this is an old school racetrack, and in particular this part of the circuit where the cars were coming over the top of the hill. And sadly it was the scene of that tragic accident way back in 1982, sadly we keep referring to it, but turned 8, 9, really a bus stop chicane in the literal sense. What would have been turn 8 in the old days was a great right-hand corner which would have led into turn 9. Two wonderful corners in the woods here in Zolder. So we've now got 3 serious chicanes, which of course puts a huge pressure on the cars, particularly on the braking of the cars. And the brakes don't really get a huge opportunity here to get some time to cool down. It's pretty much flat out on the brake pedal all the way around the lap.
Well, Karun Chandok, wasn't he struggling with the brakes in first 3 practice session? He was very, very worried about that. We're on board with Alvaro Parent then, the last man in the field, and they will all start to move into their 2x2 formation now. So Stefan Racina on pole position in the Lamborghini. Alongside him will be Sergei Afanasiev. The qualifying race for round 2 about to get underway. The Lamborghini of Stefan Racina on pole position when the lights go out. Everyone's staring at the red lights. They go out now. It's a great start from Anthony Kumpen looking towards the inside. He's blocked off though on the run down to the first corner. Little bit of contact in the middle, but it looks as though Racina has held the lead going into turn 1. Afanasiev is pushed out wide. Vanthoor slots into 2nd place. Trying to get around the outside there is René Rast. René Rast is up in a 3rd position. That's a phenomenal start. On board we go with Kaká Bueno now, battling in the field. He looks like he's lost a number of places. That's the Grasser Racing Lamborghini coming past. Afanasiev runs wide onto the grass, keeps it all together on the run down into turn 4. But the long and short of it is Stefan Racina leads, and I think René Rast has gone from way down on the 4th row of the grid up into 3rd place.
Well, a brilliant start from a driver who knows how to get around a lap, the opening lap of any race, and use the long way round. Everybody will naturally dive towards the inside as the cars fight their way through the first of the 3 chicanes, and then up and over the hill and the drop down into turns 8 and 9.
So down through this sweeping left-hander, it's Stefan Racina out in the lead, but it's WRT 2 and 3. Afanasiev will be very frustrated that he got kind of bullied out at the first corner, which is always going to happen if you're starting on the outside. As we go back on board then with Alvaro Parent, that's Karun Chandok in front of him. This is a challenge from the Nova driver car trying to get past Matthias Stumpf, but he's unable to do it just yet. He's going to have another look down into turn 12, the hairpin. As we go on board with Kaká Bueno, he's got a good exit there through turn 12 as they head back up towards the final chicane on this circuit, the one just before the start-finish straight. But the BMW is really struggling in a straight line, and as a result, he can't seem to get close to the back of Dominic Baumann at the moment.
Well, a little bit of progress from Alvaro Parent. He's made up 3 positions now. The Nissan getting embroiled in the battle of the BMW and the Ferrari. And Alex Buncombe in that car, and going one way and back the other way.
Into the left-hander they come. And so it's Sergio Jimenez ahead of Fabio Onidi, ahead of Alex Buncombe. As they turn through turn 1, that's all the squabble over 9th place. with that BMW up at the front, but 0.8 of a second is the gap at the front that Stefan Racina has managed to pull out over Laurens Vanthoor. And here comes Buncombe now, trying to get back past the Needy as they come into turn 4.
Well, we saw this car, the Nissan, being really strong in a straight line, and we can go with Monza at different events in the GT series, but same driver, same basic car, but not able to do anything with the Ferrari in the climb up the hill into the chicane. Turn 5, turn 6, quick left, quick right, stay off the curbs, can do damage if you don't.
Over the hill they come, Jimenez in 9th place, starting to back everyone up. Laurens Vanthoor's just gone purple in sector 1, so he's the quickest man on the circuit at the moment as they wind their way through these chicanes. And look at how heavily Karun Chandhok is having to defend. In fact, Matej Stumpf's got past Alvaro Parent, so Parent was right behind Chandhok as we go on board with him, but now he's got a Ford GT in between him and the Mercedes in front.
Well, I think Alvaro Parent just found himself in the wrong bit of track at the wrong time. He's now looking to dive down the inside, one of the favourite places to try and make an overtake. Does it successfully into turn 12.
And Wolfgang Reip is going to try and take advantage of that in that big black and red Nissan as they come towards the final corner. The Nissan very, very good in a straight line, as we saw in the Blancpain Endurance Series last time out at Monza, but there's not really much opportunity to overtake around here as they come out onto the start-finish straight once more. A great scrap throughout the field. Up at the front, the gap is 0.6 of a second between Racina and Vanthoor as they wind their way through turn 1, then through this right-hander of turn 2, which pretty much leads into 3. They are separate corners, but it's all very much one movement.
I mean, it's a blend. You get your apex corrected to, you run the car right out to the outside, and then as the car makes its own natural arc, it takes you into the apex of turn 3. Get it right, it feels fantastic. Need to be careful on the edge of the 3, you don't overrun. We did see cars on the opening lap doing that. That's where the dust was being picked up from the outside of the exit of turn 3, and then it's down to turn 4.
So over the crest of the hill they come, but here are our race leaders then. The top 3 starting to pull away a little bit from Sergei Afanasyev. Stefan Racina's gone quicker than anyone in sector 1, so the gap is up to 0.8 of a second again. And then there's this little bit of a queue that we've seen before. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. The rest of the field filter their way through. So the rest of the top 10 is Mike Parisi in 5th place, Anthony Kumpen in 6th, Frank Stippler in 7th, Maximilian Buch in 8th, and then this 9th, 10th and 11th battle that we're watching now is Sergio Jimenez, the Brazilian driver at the head of it. And here comes Kaká Bueno now, trying to get past Dominic Baumann. On board we go with Bueno, the 5-time stock car champion in Brazil, but you can just see the straight line speed, can't you? Nothing you can do.
I mean, clearly the Lamborghini with the V10 engine in it, as opposed to the V8 in the BMW. Whatever way the regulations are, the BMW is losing out. You can see it clearly. Now, that's not just horsepower, that's probably aerodynamic drag as much as anything else. And this is what the balance of performance is all about. Some circuits will come to the BMW, or in this case, with the Lamborghini leading, and also just looking at the second of the Lambos, they've got good performance in the straight line.
Absolutely. So through the right-hander at turns 3 they come now. Here's the race lead, though. The gap is very, very close between the two of them. Stefan Racina, Slovakian driver, holding off Laurens Vanthoor at the moment. There's Hans Reiter, very happy to be in the series. They missed the opening round in Nagaro, but they're here for the rest of the season. It's brilliant to have them here, especially if they're going to contribute to such fantastic racing up at the front. Look how close Vanthoor is now.
Well, he said he drove the best race of his life. He thought, what, 2 to 3 weekends ago in Nagaro, he's doing it again, right on the tail of the Lamborghini and being chased by René Rast. He's not going to give Vanthoor 1 centimetre of track. If he can see a gap, he'll go for it.
Absolutely, it's fantastic racing up at the front. The 3 of them head out along the back straight once again for the 4th time towards the chicane. And Sergei Afanasyev needs to be careful because he's got Mike Parisi right up behind him. And has the move been made here? Yes, Kaká Bueno has got past the Lamborghini. And now Dominic Baumann's coming under pressure from Cesar Campanico in the Nova driver Audi. So good work there. And in the background you can see that Alvaro Parent has just dealt with Karun Chandhok.
Yep,
Alvaro Parent in the 9 McLaren.
Yeah, up to 15th place. It's a long way to go yet. Parent runs the car right out to the outside of the track in the exit of 16. And now his focus is a little bit further down the road. He's got a bit of breathing space for a lap before he catches up to the tail.
The door's open on that Mercedes, isn't it, as it comes across the line? The door's open. Incredible.
I watched the driver change with Karun Chandhok, and I mean, he slammed that door. Now, this one clearly didn't get slammed. And hopefully...
should probably pit with that one.
He's got to, because if he doesn't, the aerodynamic forces are going to be so great, it could easily rip that door off. And as they say in the movies, shut that door. I mean, that's it. Seriously, something like that is a concern. The driver needs to slow down and come into the pits.
It's Peter Charouz, and here we go on board with Caca Bueno. This is the move then being... Oh, that's opportunistic.
Well,
Good
that
stuff.
certainly was a brave manoeuvre going into turn 11. There's not an awful lot of room at the inside, almost the commitment to closing the door, but a courageous move by Caca Bueno.
So down into turn 12 they come, the top three of them all together as they come towards the final chicane. The advantage that the Lambo has is that it doesn't struggle particularly in the straight line, but it's got two WRT Audis bearing down on him. But we've seen Rosina do good jobs before.
And all three have got the same power plant. It's an Audi engine in the Audi, and it's a Lamborghini engine, but they're all from the family of VW Audi. So straight line performance is really just, again, down to the differences in aerodynamics. But these two Audis, second and third place, Van Voor and René Raz, potentially capable of lapping quicker than we're seeing right now, that of Stefan Rosina. But Rosina's got track position quick enough to really make life difficult. There, the door is, I mean, that's at the point where it's going to come off. Thank goodness he's coming into the pits, because that could have been...
Oh, he nearly shut it going around the
those are heavy doors. They're not just lightweight carbon fibre items, they're substantial.
Yep, absolutely. Into the pits comes Peter Charouz then, as this continuing lead battle after 9 minutes of racing. Nicky Mermanov on the left, Stefan Ontelli on the right, teammates of René Rast and Laurence Van Thor respectively. Dropped down the hill through towards the second chicane, but the three of them, despite it looking like Rosina is kind of holding them up, they're still pulling away from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relative thing. Stefan Rosina is doing what he has to do. He's got the lead of the race, he's controlling it at the front, he's not opening up any opportunities for Laurence Van Thorp in second place or René Rast to take advantage. If there was a closer battle between first and second, then I would say René Rast would be in the pound seat. But the second place for Audi of Van Thorp is close enough to really, really worry Rosina. All Rosina's got to do is not keep looking at his mirrors, focus on his job, and that's keeping the Lamborghini ahead. And it's going to take something very special. Possibly traffic when we come to the pit stops, and then if there's any overtaking of the back markers, that's when it's all going to kick off. Oh, back end kicked out coming out of turn 1.
Stefan's pushing, isn't he, as they come into turn 2, and that will allow Laurence Van Thor to close in a little bit. Peter Charouz has managed to shut his door and is heading back out onto the racetrack once again. But, well, if anything, it looks as though Rosina's extended that gap just a little bit in that first few sequence of corners as they head out onto the back straight underneath the bridge. And in these cool conditions, their Pirelli tyres won't really be too much of a concern for these guys.
No, I mean, ambient's very low, track temperature's low as well, so these are durable tyres, and drivers don't have a problem with situations we see elsewhere, but nevertheless, they're going to get a good workout, and Laurence Van Thorp, he did drop back momentarily. I think that was more as a response to the prospect of the Lamborghini actually getting out of shape and getting into a tank slapper. That didn't occur. Let's look again. He runs the curve, and then the back end just sort of snaps, that very sudden snap oversteer, unpredictable from a driver's point of view. Laurence Van Thorp sees that, thinks, oops, maybe just a tenth of a second he just backed out of it to give himself that little bit more margin for error that might have come late in the exit of turn 1.
Down towards the chicane again. This will be to complete their 7th lap of the race. So we've got 3 separate battles really in the top 7 places. We've got the top 3, then we've got the 2 cars squabbling over 4th place, and then we've got another 3 cars squabbling over 6th position. Brilliant racing here in FIA GT Series. Off goes on Edie. Him and Jimenez may have had a little coming together. Alex Buncombe on the outside, trying to get past. Here comes Caca Bueno as well to try and take advantage, but obviously the BMW is going to struggle in a straight line. So close between them. We're looking at it from board with Parent as they come into turn 1. Onidi doesn't know Bueno's there, does he? There's just about room. Buncombe holds the position. Jimenez drops in behind. Parent's going to try and get past Onidi. Good stuff from Alvaro Parent, and Onidi loses 3 places in as many moments.
Well, from the minute they came out of the chicane, it was pretty clear that the Nissan was going to control into turn 1, and then the BMW and McLaren with Alvaro Parent. He was sitting there watching a 3-car battle thinking 1 into 3 sounds good to me, and in fact he made up position, and now he's got to focus on the back of the Brazilian BMW going into turn 5, and it's a slow progress he's going to make, but that's what he has to do. He can't force getting through these back markers. for fear of doing damage.
Absolutely, and there's still 48 minutes of this race remaining, and the qualifying race is used to set the grid for the main race tomorrow. So the more positions he can make, the better. But if he bins it and ends up starting at the back again tomorrow, it'll be a totally wasted effort.
So things have begun to settle down. This battle that's going on in the midfield.
Something's happened there to Dominic Baumann, because that Lamborghini was ahead, wasn't he, when they came through that right-hander? So I think the Lamborghini's dropped back a few places as they come out onto the back straight once more, and he's now battling Onidi, having a look towards the inside of the Italian ex-GP2 racer, ex-AutoGP and Euro Series 3000. Fabio Onidi before making the move with AF Corse into sports cars.
Alvaro Brent gets up alongside Caco Bueno going down into turn 1 on the outside. He's got the straight line performance. Caco Bueno tried to maintain ground on the inside of the corner, but the McLaren was sufficiently far ahead. Alvaro Brent made up 2 positions in 2 laps at a more difficult point in the race, getting past now the midfield runners is a lot more difficult than passing those in the tail of the field.
Absolutely, up at the front, the gaps remain the same between the top 3 as we continue to watch this great battling. On board we go again with Bueno. Car number 0, that's his number in the Brazilian Stock Car Championship. He will be heading back to Brazil this week because the next round of the Brazilian Stock Car Championship is coming up next week. Let's see how he did it then, John.
Yes, this is a typical perfect position of the car. Bueno goes to the inside of the main pit straight to block the McLaren going down as they come into turn 1. But the McLaren just had that little bit more speed, also was able to turn in that little bit later, gives room on the inside for the BMW to make sure he doesn't pinch the Brazilian driver, gets the position, and a relatively easy overtake for Alvaro Perez in the McLaren.
So the top 3 come down to the final chicane once more. We've got 10 minutes until the pit stop window opens, and really it'll be very interesting to see, because I mean this is the great thing about the pro element of this, is because no driver really is quicker than the other. Ortelli and Van Thor very evenly matched. Racina and Cox very evenly matched. And Nicky Mermanov impressed us all last time out in Nogaro to be just as quick.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the error he made and coming into the pits and failing to turn the engine off, the look on his face said that I've had the best day in the seat of an Audi that I've ever had. In fact, it was his first day in the seat of the Audi. It's irrelevant.
So across the line, there is Wolfgang Reip into turn 1. He's another driver at his home circuit, and he and the RGN Nissan team are doing very, very well indeed. They climb over the hill. Born in Brussels was Wolfgang, about an hour away.
Well, not like Friday night with the Friday night traffic of getting out of Brussels. No, it's about an hour from Zolder circuit to the heart of the capital of Belgium.
And here's another Belgian, Anthony Kumpen, currently holding up Frank Stippler and Maximilian Buch. Perhaps, well, they're certainly very close. Has Alvaro Perez just made a move on Alex Buncombe? Yes, he has. So Alvaro Perez is now up into 10th position. And he will have Sergio Jimenez up in front of him in 9th place that he'll be trying to get past before too long.
Well, we know that the BMW is not the quickest car in a straight line here in Zolder. So if Alvaro Perez can repeat the type of medicine that he did to Caco Bueno a lap or 2 ago, let's look and see into turn 5. Oh, and then the Nissan gets all over the place. Hip, hop, skip and a jump. And that's where the car didn't get past all the way around, the long way around, the risky way around the outside, because it's very dirty in the outside. Then hard on the brakes and you're compromised on your entry. Then the switch back to the left. Then again back to the right. This sequence of corners, 8, 9 and 10.
So Pitbull looking very satisfied with what they're seeing. There's car number 11, Laurens Van Thor, in 2nd place at the moment. His bathroom overlooks turn 3 here. There's still only a second separating the top 3. The gaps in between them seem to and fro a little bit. And it's a comfortable 4th place at the moment for Sergei Afanasiev, which also means he's leading the Pro-Am class. And then we've got this Audi battle, Kumpen versus Stippler, with Maximilian Buch keeping an eye on it. And then we've got this battle. Battles everywhere. Here comes Jimenez and Alvaro Perez already right on the back of the BM.
Yeah, I mean, the McLaren clearly is one of the quickest cars in the field. We know that from qualifying, that it should have been up on the front row of the grid.
So on board we go with Alvaro Perez as he tries to find a way past Sergio Jimenez in front of him. Jimenez himself, a very experienced racer, was Lewis Hamilton's teammate back in 2003 in Formula Renault when Hamilton won the championship. Jimenez himself finished down in 11th place. But still, a very respectable driver, plenty of seasons in GT racing. was in the FIA GT1 World Championship for a couple of races a few years ago as well. But Alvaro Parent is the total McLaren master, really. If anyone's going to be able to do anything in a McLaren, it'll be Parent as they come down towards the chicane. But this is where he got past Bueno, and maybe this is his best chance now.
Yes, indeed, coming out of the final chicane 15 and 16. Got to position his car ideally. He did a number of laps ago behind Jacob Bueno. In fact, he's not quite so well positioned. Still going to try and do the same trick the long way around, but whether he's up, no, he doesn't. The BMW was able to defend, and Alvaro Parent had to get out of it. His compromise on the exit of turn 16 just too great to give him the drive, and BMW maintains that position.
So through turn 2 they come, and Bueno now is going to try and attack Fabio Anidi. And or has Anidi just got past Bueno? Yes, sorry, Anidi got past Bueno on that last lap. So that means Kaka has dropped down to 13th place, Anidi up into 12th place. Alvaro Parent still, though, staring at the back of this BMW now.
Well, Sergio Jimenez is a different experience to that of Kaka Bueno, with his European experience, and he knows how to use the track. Alvaro Parent looks down the inside. Is there contact? Oh, what an error, what an error. That was no way. That's going to be a penalty for Alvaro Parent. He was not clear enough to make that manoeuvre as he dived down into the inside.
This is Bueno now, isn't it? This is Bueno, Jimenez's teammate. But, well, I was just singing Alvaro's praises, but he did a very similar thing in Nogaro, didn't he? Hitting René Rast. Whether that was his fault exactly, it's difficult to say. It was in the wet, lines were different, but he can get a bit, you know, a bit eager. Oh, and he got a wheel on the grass coming down into the braking zone. Now Bueno's having to go to defend back here from Dominic Baumann. But, well, I wouldn't be surprised if that incident is under investigation soon. The battle for the lead looked very close, didn't it, as they went through turn 2. Who's going to come out in the lead? It is Laurens Vanthoor has got past Stefan Rosina.
Well, that's probably a great manoeuvre down into turn 1. We will probably get a look at that a little bit later, but certainly once Laurens Vanthoor's got ahead of in the Lamborghini, he's going to pull away relatively easily, because the pace that Vanthoor has, and even in the case of René Rast and the second of those Audis, as I mentioned earlier, is probably greater than that of Stefan Rosina. But the fact is that's taken, well, the best part of 20 minutes for a lead change to develop.
So Laurens Vanthoor moves into the lead of the race, the man who finished second in the race in Nogaro after that fantastic final lap. He really has shown himself to be a very, very impressive driver, Laurens Vanthoor. Last season was his first year in GT racing after a single-seater career that included a German F3 win in 2009, won the championship F3 Euro Series, and now he's in GTs and doing very well.
René Rast is now going to do, I think, what we didn't get to see yet, hopefully we will see, was the change of lead, either into turn 1 or into turn 2, because the Lamborghini looked to me like it's sliding more than it had done. René Rast not quite on the rear wing of the Lamborghini to turn 1, but he may then get a second opportunity. It depends just how good Lamborghini is out of the exit of turn 1 if he cut back to the battle going on further down the field.
Yep, exactly. We have seen Vanthoor very, very strong in qualifying, and now it looks like he's proving to us that he's very good in the race department as well as they come into turn 2.
Yes, I mean, there's lots of drivers who can say, I'm quicker than anybody else out there, but not all of those drivers can say, I'm actually a really good race driver. I know how to overtake, I know how to take my car and work it to gain advantage, and that's what Laurens Vanthoor has done. That's what René Rast is going to try and do also on that second place Stefan Rosina Lamborghini.
So down towards the chicane. This is now the battle over 6th position. Still Kumpen, Stippler and Buch line astern as they crest the hill and then drop down it once more through the left-hand sweep.
Yeah, an incident between car 9 and 21 is under investigation. So I just wonder, from what I could see, Alvaro Parent was very ambitious. In fact, he wasn't sufficiently far forward. I would have called that an avoidable incident. And we'll wait to see what the stewards have to say. They may well deliver a penalty to that particular car.
So down towards the chicane. It's, Mike Parisi then running behind in 4th place. Haven't mentioned him much because he's running in a fairly lonely 4th place as they come through the chicane. And here's the battle now for second.
Oh,
Rene Rast attacking.
He nearly overran the back of Rosina there into turn 1, but again he's going to go one way, then cut down the inside of turn 2, puts the Audi in the inside. I mean, how easy was that? He has to be careful on the exit. Lamborghini thought about doing the cutback. He got oversteered just at the point he was thinking about committing, going back down the inside. And I mean, a really good thought-out overtake by the Rene Rast Audi, and now it's Audi 1-2. Laurens van Thor, the gap going across the line was 1.5 seconds. That was on the Lamborghini. It's now over 2 seconds to the sister Audi of Rene Rast.
Now the drivers were telling us, weren't they? I think it was Mike Parisi saying turn 2 is a good opportunity to overtake because it's so wide there. You can put the car up the inside and there's plenty of space. Here's the replay, John.
Yeah, Alvaro Brent looking to go down the inside, and just, I mean, there's no way that's going to be a penalty of sorts for Alvaro Brent. He committed, and he was not sufficiently far enough alongside the BMW at that point to claim that was his corner, and that's what happens on circuits like Zolder, which are very tight. You've got to be patient, and if you're not certain, then just be careful, be cautious.
Nicky Melnoff getting ready. Come on, says Nicky, with 2 minutes to go before the pit stop window opens. I imagine he'll be one of the last drivers to be making the pit stop as they come through the final chicane. Mike Parisi then ahead of Sergei Afanasiev, then 6th, 7th and 8th coming towards us once more. But everything is going to change at the pit stops. I mean, really, WRT are looking strong because they have the quickest pit stops of anyone in the field. Certainly in Nagaro, they were the quickest team, and so in theory, they should just extend their advantage up at the front. The most frustrated man out there is probably Frank Stippler. He knows his teammate is doing a wonderful job up the front, but he can't get past Anthony Kumpen at the moment.
No, and of course Anthony Kumpen probably knows this racetrack as well, if not better than anybody. I can't imagine doing a 24-hour race around here, let alone 6 or 8 of them.
10. He's done 10.
24 hours. I mean, you must be nuts. No wonder we caught him smoking back in the pit lane before we came into the commentary booth. Poor man must be a nervous wreck.
36 minutes to go here in Zolder, and there is Anthony Kumpen, who has, as you say, competed in 10 24 hours of Zolder. He's won 6 of them. His teammate Enzo Eid has won 1 of them. They wind their way through the chicane, and there's just been no movement in that battle for the whole of this race so far. Alvaro Parent behind is lapping 0.4 of a second quicker per lap, but surely they won't need all. Kumpen cuts the chicane there. Left is braking a little bit too late, so he's really starting to get a little bit flustered with Frank Stippler behind him. But it can't be too much of an investigation, really, that move between Parent, we would have thought. But then we thought he might get a penalty for the contact with Rene Rast in France, but he didn't then either. So we'll have to wait and see for the final steward's decision.
I think the difference is where in Nagaro the track was damp at the time the incident occurred. Here it was a dry track. It was just either he just braked simply too late or a total misjudgment, and whichever way around it was, it caused the BMW to be knocked around. It got going again, but there was an overtake that was an avoidable incident, and ordinarily there will be penalties. As we look again at
this is
Kumpen, and let's see what he says. Well, I mean, he's probably on the verge of technically a penalty, but no advantage was gained, as we see now. First car's in.
Right, the pit stop window opens, so in comes Sergio Jimenez, in comes Dominic Baumann, and in comes Karun Chandok. So interesting to see how that pans out. But there is the 13 Audi, which is actually leading the championship. Frank Stippler and Edward Sandstrom, after winning the main race in France, are the current championship leaders, but that may well change here because they're down in 7th place, but looking very, very close. Now, you'd think that they would pit as soon as possible, wouldn't you, to get out from behind that Audi in front.
I mean, it's obvious you want to get out of this battle. Frank Stippler's been basically running behind Anthony Kumpen all race, quicker than Kumpen in the identical Audis. Frank Stippler not likely to do anything too... Oh, that's nice. Close the door, guys. What are you doing? Gee, I mean, you're not playing football.
Sergio Jimenez a little bit frustrated. That's,
never. I mean, that's a sort of a Nelson.
And that's going to be a close release between the BMW and the Mercedes. The BMW has to get out of it, and well, all sorts going on. That's a lot of flair down at the Brazilian garage at the moment. But that means the Mercedes actually got past. The doors open again. Oh, someone needs to kick that one as they come into the right-hander.
Oh my goodness!
And he's just come out behind, or in front, sorry, of the Jan Seyfarth. Oh, look at this! These 3 cars that were battling over 6th place have now come into the pits, line astern. This is going to be fun, isn't it?
Frank Stipper turned right and he almost hit the barrier. He thought he was going into the pit lane a little bit quicker than he actually was.
Don't take off your seatbelts, Alvaro, until you've actually come to a stop.
What he's done is loosened the shoulder straps, which you're allowed to do. It's undoing the buckle that holds the whole harness together, brings it to a stop. Now the hand on the belts, gets out pretty quick indeed getting out of the car.
Now, Perrin was behind this queue. That queue of 3 cars, he was behind. So if he can get a good pit stop here, he might be able to get out in front. This is going to be absolutely fascinating. The order was Phoenix, WRT, Gravity Charouz, then Sebastian Loeb racing. We'll see if any of them can take an advantage. There is Sebastian Loeb then, strapped into his car, fires up the engine, and away he goes, and he's got past them all.
But he's also still pulling on his seatbelt as he's moving.
Well, he's got past the Phoenix Audi, so maybe he hasn't got past them all. No, HTP Gravity Charouz machine comes out, then Loeb, then the Phoenix Audi. Did the WRT get out in front?
We weren't watching it in the pit lane.
We need to see.
There is the lead.
Yeah, that's Laurens Vanthoor leading the way. He's yet to pit. So, well, in that big scrap over 6th place, we didn't see where the WRT number 13 Audi came out. So that'll be the one to watch.
3rd place, Lamborghini of Resina into the pit lane now, so they got out of sync a little bit with the 2 leading Audis.
Okay, so once the pit stops all shake out, we'll give you a full rundown of what's going on. Out climbs Stefan Resina, and in climbs Peter Cox, the 49-year-old Dutchman from Eindhoven, very experienced racer. There is Sebastian Loeb then, out in front of Enzo Ede. Resina's clear of the car. The Reiter squad pretty decent in their pit stops. They've improved a lot because they were let down quite a bit last year. Away goes Peter Cox now. The top 2 Audis haven't stopped yet, have they? So there's nothing to be judged by this. As he comes out of the pit lane, Sebastian Loeb gets on the brakes into the chicane. Now we will find out whether the 13 Audi got out in front. Sandstrom, I think there might be a problem or something for Edward Sandstrom.
Well, he's ahead of Loeb.
Oh, he is ahead.
According to time you're scoring, he's ahead. And between them is the Mercedes of
Alan Day now, yeah. So Edward Sandstrom did get out ahead of those guys, and as a result, we think is up into 6th, and what will be a net 6th place. But the big question now is when WRT come in, will they be able to hold their advantage to the Reiter guys? Mike Parisi comes into the pits, a little run wide from Laurens Vanthoor, but here is Parisi. He will then hand over to Andy Zuber. They were running in 4th place. Half an hour to go, and most of the drivers will have now made their pit stops. It's just WRT, that lead car, number 11, Laurens Vanthoor, and the 2nd place car of René Rast that haven't come in yet. In comes Parisi. In gets Zuber, the Austrian driver, but races under a licence that he got in the United Arab Emirates. Lives in Dubai at the moment.
As some of us do. It's a good stop again. All the front wheels tires getting done, left front down, right front off. So there is team principal, I suppose you might call him, as well as number 1 driver, Sebastian Loeb, and a little bit of a halter for Andreas Zuber as he goes on, and he's going to come out, I would suggest, well ahead of his own teammate.
And yes, but will he come out in front of Peter Cox? That would be the interesting thing. That's going to be quite close between the 2 of them. And no, he has not. He's come out behind Peter Cox, but still ahead of Edward Sandstrom in the 13 Audi. So that's still going to be a net 4th place.
Leader in.
In comes Laurens Vanthoor to hand over to Stefan Ortelli. Now, they can't come in at the same time, can they? Because it's just one WRT squad. So that means that René Rast now inherits the lead of this race as he comes across the line, moves into the lead, but he'll be coming into the pits before too long. Pit stop of car 21 is under investigation, which is Sergio Jimenez. He's probably under investigation for grievous bodily harm to the door of the car.
We're going to suspend a 6-month sentence. He was a very aggressive, trying to find out what the problem with the door was. We don't know, but certainly he took it into his own feet and tried to kick the thing closed. So Stefan Ortelli into what had been the lead Audi. Great job by Laurens Vanthoor to get ahead of Stefan Rossini in the Lamborghini. Pulled away Lamborghini. There is the Lamborghini now with Peter Cox.
So
it's going to be tight because Peter Cox is what, half a kilometre away. Is the Audi still getting serviced in the pit lane of the Jacks now? Should be fairly comfortable.
Bit of a slow getaway, but Peter Cox,
Cox comes over the pit straight
enough. So Peter Cox comes over the start-finish straight. Stefano Ortelli is already coming around the exit of turn 1, so Ortelli holds the position to Peter Cox
easily.
But the next question is going to be Nicky Meyer-Melnoff and René Rast. When they come into the pits, will they be able to take the lead or to slot into second place? Drive-through penalty for Sebastian Loeb for contact with car 21, which was obviously Sergio Jimenez, and so it's a drive-through penalty for Sebastian Loeb. We saw it coming, his teammate Alvaro Perrin.
I think the thing that's unfortunate is that it's Sebastian Loeb who's got to serve the penalty for his co-driver, who was the perpetrator of the issue. But these things have got to be investigated by the stewards. They've got to look at it from every potential angle and all the shots that are available via television. They've made a judgment. That's the right judgment for a move that was not realistic, led to an avoidable incident. René Rast, there we are, René Rast going around turn 3.
So that's 2 drive-through penalties in 3 races so far for Sebastian Loeb and Alvaro Perrin. They'll be hoping to be a little more well-behaved, I think, for the rest of the season. Pit stop window open still for another 2 minutes, so I think we'll see Raston on this lap.
Yes, he's catching up to traffic. He doesn't want that traffic to hinder his progress, so he will dive in with the pit stop. Literally, doubtful he could make this lap and then one more lap as Nicky Meyer-Melnoff is standing there ready, and this time he won't have to worry about switching the engine off, because that will be dutifully done by this man, René Rast, and then all Nicky Meyer-Melnoff has to do is bring the car home.
I'd like to see Meyer-Melnoff versus Sergio Jimenez in a kickboxing fight. Do you remember Meyer-Melnoff last year drop-kicking a wheel nut across the pit lane?
I'd love to get an interview with Jimenez to see why it wasn't that he had to be so aggressive as it comes. Sebastian Loeb for the drive-through penalty, taking it as early as possible, which he's required to do. Then René Rast almost overrunning the tail of his sister Audi.
Yep, that was the Nova driver car, I think, of Carlos Vieira, but into the pits then comes René Rast. The battle is going to be predominantly for the lead with Stefano Ortelli, but then secondly, as the car exits the pits, secondly, the battle for second place with Peter Cox. There is Meyer-Melnoff. Very impressive. His pace has been... he started the year as an amateur driver, but he was so good in Nogaro that he's become a pro. Brake dust flying off the front brakes as they come into the stops. WRT very, very strong with their pit stops.
René Rast, the shorter of the 2 drivers, he drives with an insert in the seat, so that the basic seat position remains the same. So when Melnoff gets into the car, just flips out that insert, jumps into the car, and everything in position of steering wheel, pedals, and all the controls are ideal for the taller driver. He's off. Well, he's off.
This is going to be a bit close, actually. Nicky Meyer-Melnoff coming down towards turn 1. There's the 3rd place Lamborghini, but it's the lead Audi that's the important one as they come in towards turn 2. Where are we at then? Meyer-Melnoff holds into second place just about, but Peter Cox will have hotter tyres.
Correct, that's the key. Peter Cox is on warm tyres. Also the Mercedes slowing down. So look at Peter Cox. He's going to try and make the manoeuvre as quickly as possible. Into turn 4 isn't really possible. Easy to defend. Next opportunity, up the hill. Get a good drive for Peter Cox in the Lamborghini. Melnoff is going to stay on the left-hand side on the way up. Now Cox cuts back to the right, gets alongside, but not enough to take the corner.
Oh, it's going to be close between the 2 of them coming into the chicane. Brilliant racing. Meyer-Melnoff defends well. This is the battle over second place in the race. Peter Cox looks to the inside again, but coming into the quick left-hander, it's turn 7. It's not really an opportunity. Down into the chicane, and this will get Meyer-Melnoff a little bit flustered, I think. Oh, he's run a little bit wide coming through the right-hander. That's not going to give Cox an opportunity. These corners out the back of the circuit so fast.
Yeah, but into turn 12 is going to be another opportunity for Peter Cox. Melnoff is going to have to go very wide. Cox goes to the left, tries to take the traditional line and get the cut back on the exit, and he's got it easy.
Peter Cox makes it through into second place. Nicky Meyer-Melnoff in an almost identical manoeuvre to how he lost the lead of the race in Nogaro, just being a little bit too busy looking in his mirrors, misses his braking point. Cox is through.
Well, Peter Cox was putting a lot of pressure on Nicky Meyer-Melnoff. just out of the pits on the colder tyres, and that's a really strong drive. Peter Cox, that's how you make your overtakes. You make the driver forces an error, and once he'd done it, then it was going to be simple for the Lamborghini driver to take that second position away.
Andy Zuber's coming to join the party as well. He is only 0.8 of a second behind Nicky Melnhoff. So let's have a little shakedown. What's happened is Stefan Ortelli is leading the way in the number 11 WRT Audi. Peter Cox is up into second place, 8 seconds back from Ortelli. Third place now is Nicky Melnhoff, but he's got Andreas Zuber in that Sebastian Loeb Racing McLaren right up behind him. And then in 5th place is Edward Sandstrom in the WRT car with Andreas Simonsen now in 6th place. This is the battle over 10th position. Alain Coder ahead of Jan Seyfarth. Alain Coder in the BMW Team Brazil Z4 and Jan Seyfarth in the Mercedes SLS Seyfarth Motorsport machine.
Well, both machines are complaining about lack of straight line performance, so let's see if the Mercedes can do anything with the BMW. We did see that BMW were vulnerable to other manufacturers' lights going along the line. That Mercedes trying again to distract the BMW and using all these tactics. Totally fair, you're allowed to do it. If you can get the driver's eye to look in the mirror and forget about what he's doing ahead, then you've usually found the guy in a position to attack.
And that is a bit of a shame there for... Sorry.
Go ahead, just so the Lamborghini, sorry, Nicky Melnhoff under, yes, Andreas Zuber has closed right down to the back of the Audi, battle for 3rd place.
That was Paolo Bonifacio, it was in the pits in the orange Seyfarth car, which is a bit of a shame. A very good car, that. It was the one Seyfarth ran to the German GT title last season, and it's now joined the FIA GT series, which is good to see. Duda Rossa, Paolo Bonifacio's teammate. Duda raced in Formula Ford 1600 in the late 1980s in the UK. Tried to be an F1 star, ran out of cash, went back to Brazil, made a bomb.
As everybody does in Brazil these days.
And now gets to race again. Great stuff.
Well, it was a great story for somebody who maybe didn't get to fulfill down the inside. He gets through in the end into turn 1.
So Jan Seyfarth moves up into 10th place. Alain Coder, nothing he can do about that. They come into turn 2 now. Seyfarth has had some good pace, you have to say. Karun Chandhok has struggled to get up to pace.
I think you're quite right. Karun is finding a different style of car and motor racing in the GT series than that he's accustomed to. And of course, limited amount of grip, a lot less aerodynamic, and it's much more difficult for a driver coming from high downforce cars into a much lower downforce car than it is to do it the other way around. And Karun having to adapt to the much heavier, the much bigger, wider, sitting so far back, you're almost sitting on the rear axle in the Mercedes.
Right foot braking for Alain Coder as he comes into the chicane. Off the brake, back on the throttle again. So he gets swung around inside that car through this fast back sequence of corners, through all the forests you can see going through the window. It's a spectacular racetrack here at Zolder. And here is Nicky Melnhoff, still not under too much pressure from Zuber. He's managed to hold off the attack for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Zuber was able to see what was going on for the battle for 2nd place. That is part of why he ran down what is now the 3rd place Audi relatively easily. But now that Nicky Melnhoff has got, let's say, settled after that drama of the opening lap and half a lap that followed when he lost his 2nd place, he's now going to be able to control the Zuber and McLaren much more comfortably.
Needs a kick, that, doesn't it? The door on the number 21 car is still playing up, and that is now
shut. That's the main thing.
Well, no, it's flapping open a little bit. I think we might see it when he comes out of the right-hander. It's obviously on the far side now, but as they come out of the final corner, it's not as dramatic as the Mercedes one, but it's still flapping around there in the hands of Ricardo Zonta, down in 16th place. Ricardo Zonta, the ex-Formula 1 driver.
Well, as long as that door actually doesn't come detached as it did on the Mercedes, it isn't going to be a problem there. You can see it is, in fact, it's sort of into turn 2. It opens up then and closes again. Probably not going to be a major issue for Ricardo Zonta, and probably not going to be something that the stewards are going to be concerned about either.
Unless it's a movable aerodynamic device.
Well, if I was doing it under braking and was doing it on both sides, you might say so, but it's not. 3rd place battle now, settling down Lamborghini, Audi, and the McLaren. Andreas Zuber, though, this time slightly stronger out of turn 16 on the run down into turn 1. Looks to look down the inside, realises hasn't got the ground, but again he's got an opportunity on the exit of turn 1 and use the same tactic that we saw a little bit earlier to make the cut back.
Only Only two and a half tenths of a second between them as they cross the line. And this is, again, Frank Stippler's involved. He seems to be spending most of his afternoon stuck behind the cars in front and not really making much progress, but he has managed to fight his way up into 5th place. Well, having said that, he started in 6th, so he would have liked a little more progress, I think, Frank Stippler. It's Edward Sandstrom, sorry, of course, in the car now.
Yes, Sandstrom just sort of watching this battle for 3rd place and being very Swedish and very pragmatic in his whole approach, very calm, waiting to see whether there is going to be any contact between the 3rd place Audi, the 4th place McLaren. In the meantime, just sits there, Edward Sandstrom, not under any threat from car directly behind.
Andreas Simonsen and then Alan Day, the two HDP Gravity Charoux cars, a little disappointing perhaps in 6th and 7th, considering the pace they showed to qualify 2nd on the grid. You can see Peter Cox now has a comfortable advantage. Him and Stefano Ortelli up at the front, lapping a pretty similar pace, really. And there is Ortelli leading the way, the Monegasque driver. That is what 8.8 seconds looks like. 8.6 seconds now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very comfortable gap, and Ortelli able to control the pace. Peter Cox really not able to eat into that advantage that Ortelli is enjoying, and looks pretty comfortable. I mean, a really outstanding stint by Laurens van Voor in the lead car has given Stefano Ortelli the benefit, plus the good teamwork by getting that car turned round and serviced in the pit lane. So all Ortelli needs to do with, 16.5 or so minutes of this race remaining is just to be cautious when it comes to lapping back markers.
Now this is Sebastian Loeb dealing with Harry Projik, the Lamborghini. Is that a position gained on this lap? No, it's just a squabble, really, between the two of them over 14th place. Loeb is starting to edge clear, I think, by the looks of things, but it will be a very frustrating some events for them because, well, like I said earlier, this decides the grid for tomorrow, and so, you know, patience was good for Perrin because a moment like that and suddenly you've got to start from 14th on the grid tomorrow, you've got to do the whole thing again.
Well, it's a very disappointing situation, Alvaro, to get himself involved in that unnecessary incident and penalising not only himself but in fact that particular car that was in effect a front row of the grid car before they had that penalty due to an issue with the turbo. So we see the fixing the door finally on Ricardo Zonta's BMW. It's either been brought in by the race steward or by simply the driver feeling it's not safe to continue.
I think they did receive a black and orange warning flag actually as they come across the line in this battle over 3rd place still. Meermelnhoff, Zuber, Sandstrom have now been joined by Simonsen and Day. All 3 of them separated by 2.5 seconds.
And that's really because the pace of this Audi, Nicky Meyer, Meermelnhoff, not really strong enough to pull away, or now I see the battle of what was 3 cars become a battle really of 5 as we got 15 minutes of this 1 hour race remaining.
Yeah, 2.5 seconds between the 5 of them, I should have said, as they come out onto the back straight. Behind behind Alan Day, we've got Enzo Eid, who's another 12 seconds behind, so he's not going to come and join the fray anytime soon. As they come through the chicane. Meermelnhoff, though, despite it appearing like he's backing the pack up, Andy Zuber's not really putting him under, you know, a huge amount of pressure, which is quite interesting.
No, I mean, what's happened to Andreas Zuber is that he's suckered for the situation where you run at the pace of the car you're challenging, and the only way that Zuber, in my view, could make something out of this and try and put that McLaren up into 2nd place would be to 3rd place would be just momentarily drop back, but he knows he can't drop back. He's got Edvard Sundström right in his gearbox, but it's getting out of the momentum of the Audi that's leading this group in 3rd place, and that's what happens. You end up running at the pace, you lose your momentum, and now you've got the 2 Mercedes all over the back of the battling Audi of Edvard Sundström in 5th place.
Across the line they come to start the 30th lap of the race. 14 minutes remaining. Stefano Ortelli continues to lead. He's got a 9-second advantage over Peter Cox in 2nd place. Nicky Meermelnhoff in 3rd in this battle that we're seeing, this 5-car train for 3rd place. Alan Day's dropping back from the squabble in front just a little bit, and Alan Day is actually performing quite well. He was the first Israeli driver to be on an international motorsport podium last time in France, and he's very much new to GT racing, and he's acquitting himself fairly well as they come down the back straight.
In fact, just looking at different parts of the circuit, the Nicky Meyer-Melnhof Audi looked like it. Turn 1 and 2, it's got a slight advantage over Andreas Zuber, and the McLaren just pulled out a little bit of a zoom. But now as they come down into this sequence of 8, 9 and 10, McLaren all over the rear of the Audi, and this pack of 4 with the doppelganger of the 5th Mercedes hanging in there. So Andreas Zuber seems to, for some reason, be slightly unable to maintain the pace of the Audi in turn 2 and 3, and then picks it up back in the backside of the circuit through the forest. Lovely part of the circuit on a day like today in the rain, totally treacherous.
Oh, and there was number 3, which is Jan Stovacek, going a little bit slowly, and I think that might have caught out Meyer-Melnhof just a little bit. Could give Andy Zuber an opportunity as they come out onto the start-finish straight once more. The gap between them remains consistent. 0.7 of a second last time. It's now 0.666 seconds. And the battle behind is 0.4 of a second behind. So Andreas Zuber, desperate to try and get past, up into 3rd place. We can now hear from his teammate, Mike Parisi. He's with Emily.
Mike, do you think you can overtake for 3rd?
It is very close with the Audi of Meyer-Melnhof and Rast. It's very difficult here to overtake, so we have some driver, very good driver, just behind us. I hope that Andy is going to overtake the Audi, but it feels very difficult, so we cross fingers, but we hope.
So, over the crest of the hill they come. And Meyer-Melnhof always seems to extend that gap just when Zuber needs it to be closest. I mean, it's no good being close at this part of the circuit because there's no real overtaking opportunity.
No, there's nothing you can do. Well, we saw what happened with Alvaro Peret, tried to do it into turn 8 and 9. There is an opportunity, and they come through the forest and then down to this tight right-hander. You've got to be very careful on the brakes, easily to defend it, but of course once you start the defensive mode, you open up options for the pursuing car. But Andreas Zuber not really able to make any impression on the Audi ahead of him. He's at times been slightly closer, at times been further behind. I mean, right now is the opportunity. You'd think you could start to make it work for you by just being that little bit sharper on the throttle on the exit of turn 16. Use the advantage of following close behind the car. But again, the acceleration of the Audi looks to me to be marginally superior to the McLaren as they come down into turn 1. And again, the gap in corner 1 just seems to be slightly to the advantage of the Audi, yet further around the racetrack, Andreas Zuber can close back up to the tail of the Audi. Look, there the gap is almost a second at that point, but by the time they get up to turns 8, 9 and 10, it's back down to virtually nothing.
Stefano Telli lapping very strongly up at the front. He's doing 32.5s, and the Ricardo Zonta car still in the pits there, unfortunately. Real shame for BMW Team Brazil. But Ortelli still in 32.5s, half a second clear and quicker than anyone else on the circuit. Very impressive stuff from Stefano Telli. And Nicky Meyer-Melnhof is lapping at the same pace as Peter Cox, so the pace is there.
It's actually lapped quicker than Cox and Ortelli on that last lap. So Nicky Meyer-Melnhof is actually doing a very, very good job. We're sort of drawing him into the battle that's going on there as we go to the lead car, headlights flashing. You know, the third place car running at the pace, in fact exceeding the pace on the last lap of the first 2 cars.
So Ortelli turns through the chicane to start his 33rd lap of this race around this Zolder circuit. Very experienced racer is Stefano Telli, 43 years old, and it's a 49-year-old in second place. It's the old men are doing it at the moment, aren't they? When are you going to have a go?
Well, I just stick to the commentary booth at my senior citizen age and try to do as good a job as a very young 22-year-old.
Into the first corner they come, and what's the gap as they come across the line that time? Again, about half a second. They're very disappointed that the Brazilian squad are out of the race.
So am I. I mean, they got the grid girls for Team Brazil, and they were on duty, I should say, during the intervening period before this race got underway.
I thought you were a bit late to the commentary box.
No, I was here on time, believe me. I was here.
On board with Alain Coder in the 0 car, continuing the Brazilian fight. They're in 11th place at the moment, which won't get them any points, but it'll get them an 11th place starting slot, which is 1 place worse than they started today, so not not the best of races, but we've seen them have plenty of issues, plenty of fights, and that's the straight line speed that Vita for One Racing with struggled in the past is affecting them as well.
Just to go back to this battle for third place, it's sort of all very, not much going on. You know, Nicky Meyer-Meltenhoff has done sufficient to consolidate. Quick lap, that previous lap would have been 32. They're going on to the 33rd lap. Andreas Zuber in the McLaren behind, unable, and again Sundstrom and the two Mercedes all just simply all running line astern. Nobody can make a move. Nobody's being forced into an error so far, with just under 8 minutes of this to go.
Half a second between third and fourth places again. You get the feeling that this, as soon as one thing happens here in this battle, it's all going to kick off, and there is a spin, unfortunately, for Lucas Ordóñez. Does a nice little donut to get out of trouble. But
that was probably the result of either trying to overtake or trying to defend, but whatever it was, got it all wrong in turn 12 and the car went round.
It must have been with Carlos Vieira.
Well,
yes, there is Carlos Vieira trying to force his way past Ordóñez down into 12, and that's a shame because it's knocked Ordóñez out of third place in the Pro-Am category, and it's also, by the looks of things, knocked something awry within the Nissan itself. They had a bit of contact in the last race, didn't they, in France?
May well be something the stewards will want to investigate, because when a car is damaged and has to make a trip down the pit lane, the perpetrator shouldn't be able to get away with that scot-free.
So Carlos Vieira then, and the number 14. Nova driver Audi, they're currently leading the Pro-Am Cup coming into this weekend. They're looking like they'll take a second place, but we may well see well, the incident is under investigation, so we'll have a look and see if they get any penalties. And Sebastian Loeb is in the pit lane here. I presume that's the pit lane anyway. You can't really see what it is out the window, but that's a real shame for Sebastian Loeb. And the left rear wheel is off.
Well, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, couldn't quite catch
whether the wheel came off on its own, or whether certainly there's something that they're uncertain about, and I wonder whether that might have been a wheel detaching itself, because they're both having a good look into the wheel arch and see whether there was something obvious.
It looks like the wheel was there, and yeah, the man, the mechanic has just picked it up and moved it back inside.
Well, disappointment for Sebastian Loeb and his team. Didn't particularly start well, having to start the race outside the, well, should have been in the front row of the grid, but because of the technicality, they started 10th place. Now out of the race, plus the drive-through penalty for Alvaro Parent when he had contact, unnecessary contact. So not a good day in the office for the Sebastian Loeb.
No, absolutely. He's come to learn about racing, and he's learning about it the hard way. His teammate, though, is still battling hard, as is actually Andreas Simonsen. Was really up with Frank Stippler there, and as a result, the three behind have dropped back a couple of paces. Because Owen are almost going into the hairpin at turn 12, three abreast. They were three trying to overlap with one another, but didn't quite come off. But 5 minutes to go now, and there's a bit of, not desperation starting to kick in, but you can gain points, you can gain positions for the race tomorrow. And that third place to be on the inside line for the start of the grid tomorrow is very, very important as they come across the line into turn 1. And here's a look at the replay once again, and there it is. Well, it's a fairly from that replay, it looks like a done and dusted case, really. It looks very similar to the Alvaro Parent incident earlier on in the race. But out in third place then is Nicky Meyer-Meltenhoff, holding on very well, actually, the Austrian driver. And there's our race leader, Stefano Ortelli, doing a fantastic job. Such an experienced racer. He's had success in pretty much everything he's raced. Won Le Mans in 1998 in a Porsche with Laurent Dalio and Alain McNish. He's racing World Touring Cars, Le Mans Series, FIA GT. Of course, he had that horrific accident in 2008, didn't he, with when he broke his ankle in that Le Mans Series race at Monza. But this is the cue. for third position. This is what it's all going to boil down to in the final 3.5 minutes of this race, which will be what? 2 laps? Well, maybe we might get 3 out of it, actually, because Ortelli's a little bit of a way up the road. Across the start-finish line, and Andy Zolder, I think, is closer this time than he has been in a few laps now. 0.3 of a second the gap. It's usually around 5 or 7. So Zolder now starting the push. Through the right-hander. And Nicky Meyer-Melnoff is really coming under a lot of pressure. It's not that direct pressure, but it's that kind of nagging pressure that he's always there, and you know any moment Zolder will try and have a look. Through the chicane. They're starting to leave Edvard Sandstrom behind a little bit. The gap between Zolder and Sandstrom was up to a second. As they wind their way out to the far reaches of the circuit. A little bit of a different line taken by the Audi through that right-hander. Stefan Ortelli continues to lead the way, and he's going to be starting his penultimate lap of the race now, I think, when he comes out of the final corner. There's Laurens Vanthoor, his teammate. Bathroom overlooking turn 3. And soon he might put a trophy up in his window overlooking turn 3. Not that he'll get a trophy for the qualifying race. The trophy's only handed out for the main race. There's Peter Cox in second place. Brilliant to see Ryder here, and even more brilliant to see Peter Cox leading the way in second position and doing such a strong job. Drive-through penalty for car 14, which was Carlos Vieira, which is no big surprise, really, for that contact with Lucas Ordóñez. But 1.5 minutes to go now. Penultimate lap of the race. And Nicky Meyer-Melnoff, full credit to him. He had a little bit of a wobble when Peter Cox came out of the blocks and attacked him. But since then, he's managed to calm himself down. Very fiery character is Nicky. He's managed to compose himself and hold on to this third position for the moment, which would see him starting the race in third place tomorrow, because the drivers who finish this race will start the main race on Sunday. Sweeping down through turn 7. Possibly the iconic shot of Zolder. This is the back section of the circuit where Meyer-Melnoff just struggles a little bit. I don't think Andy Zolder is going to have anything in him, you know, to get up into that third place, because it's not worth the risk. It's not worth going for an absolute bandit manoeuvre and then it not coming off, and then you having to start the main race where most of the points are up for grabs from towards the back, because you get 8 points for winning this main race. The final lap has been started by Stefan Ortelli, but if Zolder gets past Meyer-Melnoff, he'll get an extra 3 points, which, okay, every point is crucial, but the main points are up for grabs tomorrow. Peter Cox into turn 1. Very strong performance from he and Stefan Rosina. The clock hits 0. We're on the final lap of the qualifying race here in Belgium, and I don't think there's anything that Andreas Zolder is going to be able to do. Ortelli on the brakes into the chicane. Crests the hill and then down through turn 7. The 2002 Porsche Super Cup champion is looking like he's going to take the qualifying race win here for he and his teammate Laurens Vanthoor. The two of them raced here as a team in FIA GT1 last year and were thoroughly disappointed with how it worked out, because it's not just the home race for Laurens Vanthoor, it's the home race for the Belgian Audi club as well, Team WRT, who run this R8 LMS in its 2013 specification now, with the swan wing rear wing, swan necked I should say rear wing. Into the final corner comes Stefan Ortelli. He and Vanthoor have done a brilliant job today. They wrestled the lead away from the Lamborghini. Ortelli flashes his lights because he's winning in the qualifying race here in Belgium. Vanthoor looking happy with that one in his trademark beanie. Second place for Peter Cox as he comes across the line. Who's going to be third? It's going to be Nicky Meyer-Mounthoff. Very good job for Nicky. He and René Rast finish in third place. This whole queue of 5 cars across the line is Sandstrom, Andreas Simonsen and Alan Day. Enzo Eid will finish in 8th place, which will be a little bit of a disappointment considering they started in 6th, but nevertheless, not bad. They had quite a slow pit stop. 9th place will be Philippe Salaquada, just holding off Jan Seyfarth. Salaquada finishing 2nd in the Pro-Am category, and it'll be 11th place for Alain Coder for BMW Team Brazil. And Laurens Vanthoor, very happy with that one. Here comes Harry Procek now to finish in, 12th place will that be for Procek across the line? Yes, it will, because Carlos Vieira has served his drive-through penalty on the last lap. So Harry Procek, that means, and Dominic Baumann will be on the podium, or 3rd place anyway, in the Pro-Am category. But there is the race-winning car, number 11, the Audi R8 of Stefano Telli and Laurens Vanthoor. Across the line comes Jan Stovacek, who has actually won the Gentleman's Trophy in this particular race, mainly because Bonifacio retired and Felipe Tozzo didn't start, so he won a race of 1, but nevertheless got to the end. Even though they struggled a little bit with their doors. But Stefano Telli, the race winner, waving to the crowd out of the far end of the circuit. And this event always well supported. There'll be more fans here tomorrow, no doubt, for the main event. But it's great to come to Belgium. And a good result for WRT. 1st, 3rd and 5th. We thought they wouldn't quite have the domination that they had previously in Nogaro, and that has turned out to be the case. There's some other cars spliced in there, but ultimately WRT looking very, very strong. Here's a look at the results from the qualifying race then. Audi, Lamborghini, Audi the top 3, with Stefano Telli and Laurens Vanthoor taking the victory. 10 seconds clear in the end of Peter Cox and Stefan Racina. Nicky Meyer-Mounthoff and René Rast were finishing in 3rd place because Andy Zuber couldn't do anything about getting past Meyer-Mounthoff in front. Sandstrom and Sippler in 5th place. Simonsen and Afanasiev winning the Pro-Am class. You can tell the Pro-Am by the black around their white number. And that means 2nd in class was Philippe Salaquada and Fabio Anidi in the AF Corsa Ferrari, finishing down in 9th place. 20 runners in the end. And it was a real shame that Paolo Bonifacio and Duda Rosa didn't make it to the end of the race. We'll have to find out exactly what happened with their problem. Mark Szorzycki and Wolfgang Reip finishing in 15th place. I think they'll be fairly satisfied with that because they were struggling after qualifying. And Sebastian Loeb and Alvaro Parent retiring from that one, finishing 6 laps down, and they will have to start tomorrow's race from 17th on the grid. So the cars pull into Parc Fermé. I think one of the Mercedes has gone the wrong way, so they've just had to push it back out a little bit. Bit of a queue going on as they try and filter their way back down into the main paddock area. The top 3 cars hopefully have made it towards the actual paddock. So the actual pit lane, I should say. Kaka Bueno making his way back down, as is Jan Seyfarth. Good pace from Jan Seyfarth, actually. His best lap. In fact, I think Jan Seyfarth has done the fastest lap of the race in that qualifying race. A 1:31.347. Quickest lap from Vanthoor was a 1:31.667. So that's an impressive time from Jan Seyfarth. He's going to be one to watch out for tomorrow, starting in 10th position before he hands over to Karun Chandhok. But there is Stefano Telli inside the WRT Audi. The top 3 cars lining up. Then you've got the Pro-Am winner there, car number 2, Andreas Simonsen. There's Peter Cox, Dutch driver, finishing in 2nd place. I think they'll be pretty happy with that write-up, considering they missed the opening round here in, or there in Nogaro. And I've no doubt that the Belgian squad will be delighted to take the qualifying race victory here and therefore start tomorrow's main race on pole position. Very important. Telly shaking hands there with Peter Cox. Those two must have faced each other many times. And there's Nicky Meyer-Melnoff in third place. There's Van Thorp and Ortelli. What a great team they've become. And well, we can now hear from our race winners. Let's start with Laurens Van Thorp.
Laurens Van Thorp, congratulations, brilliant drive. Stefan Ortelli brought that Audi home, sweet as a nut.
Yeah, it's fantastic, especially because I live here less than 1 minute from here, so it's really my home race. And for WRT and Audi, it's Belgium Audi Club, it's a home race, so I think we cannot wish each other a better result than that, so very happy.
And you had a good pass on Stefan Rossini in the Lamborghini in your stint.
Yeah, it was difficult to get past him because on the bottom edge, on the acceleration, he was always a little bit better, and it was difficult to get behind on the braking, but then I could put some pressure on him and he made a mistake, and then we could pass him, so it was a nice job.
Well done. Stefan, tell us your story. It looked awfully easy. Nobody to pass, no one to race with.
No, he did the job. I mean, no, the car was really good. I had to fight like hell, trying to set a good pace because you never know, and especially with Peter Cox, he was so fast. I mean, they were unreachable in qualify, so we don't really know how it was going to be for the last lap. So I was a bit struggling in the end, but it's okay. And he did the biggest move of the day again. So yeah, I'm very pleased for him, especially he, and also for WRT. It's our first win this year. Last win we had was Russia. So it's been a long time, you know. Russia was end of August, so we are pleased to win again together.
Well done, guys. Pole position for tomorrow.
Indeed, that's the most important point, Watty. Pole position for tomorrow. And there is Stefan Ortelli waving to the fans out the far end of the circuit. Brilliant stuff. Very impressive drive from them. And they're going to be a real battle to be, a force to be reckoned with tomorrow. Now let's hear from our second place finisher, Peter Cox.
Peter Cox, second place. You must be reasonably pleased.
Yes, that's the correct word. Reasonably pleased. I mean, our car was not as good as we wanted it to be, and the qualifying the car was really mega. And now it was quite a hard struggle to drive it. I think Stefan did already a good job, and you know, we maintained second place. Stefan was too far away from me, so I just nursed the car, you know, and tried to go as fast as I could. But that was really the maximum we could do today.
Stefan, at one point you're leading the race, but you couldn't hold back the Audis.
Unfortunately, it was not possible for me, even though I tried. But anyway, we are in top 3. You know, I'm happy that I have such a teammate, such a team, and let's see tomorrow. I mean, I would say that everything is possible for us. So yeah, we will keep on fighting, and let's see. You know, it is also about the luck. So let's see, as I said.
Front row of the grid for tomorrow's championship race.
Yeah, front row, and we go maximum attack.
Goodbye.
So good to hear from Cox and Rosina. Stefan Rosina, very successful racer in his time from Slovakia. And third in the Porsche Super Cup back in 2009. And Jeroen Bleekemolen won the championship. René Rast finishes second place. So will we see Rast versus Rosina tomorrow? We saw it today indirectly in first and third places, but maybe tomorrow it'll be a bit more of a battle between the two of them, because Rosina will be starting just ahead of René Rast on the grid. As the hordes gather down there. There you can see the Audi. 2 Audis and a Lamborghini. Great to see Reiter here in the FIA GT series, and even better to see them doing so well up at the top of the field. And we can now hear from René Rast, who we mentioned a minute ago. He's also with Nicky Meyer-Melnoff there with John.
Nicky gave me a heart attack. I thought you'd vanished. Third place, great drive.
Yeah, fantastic. Now we had make it stick. Last time it was a really good show, but this was really incredible. I sit in the pits and look at the amazing start from René. He pushed amazing, and I sit there and try not to mess things up. And yeah, it was really tough from the pressure behind. I didn't have, so I couldn't make a mistake. But it was, yeah, we saved third place. It's a good position for tomorrow.
So it should be. You're a professional driver now.
No, not yet. But I'm learning from René. I'm learning from the best. And each weekend I think I can learn something more, and I try to. Thank you.
Great overtake in that first stint when you were in the car. Lamborghini was hard to pass.
Yeah, the Lamborghini was quite good in acceleration, so it was always hard to get him on the straight. But he had a bit of more tire wear in the rear, and I just took the opportunity in turn 2 and braked a little bit later and overtook him. So it was a great race for us.
So what do you two guys think you're going to be able to do Sunday?
Difficult to say. I mean, tomorrow we start from P3. Nicky was quite fast today, and maybe I brake even later than today, and maybe you can overtake the first 2 guys tomorrow already. So we will see. Hopefully podium again.
Your teammate says you were quite fast. I think you were better than quite fast.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him this year already, and the team works and gives me such good backup that I know that the team is working so well, and I just feel well. The Audi is a great car, so I'm not doing much, but it seems to be working. So.
And I hate to drag it up, the engine was switched off on the pit stop.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
So that was obviously a reference to the last race in France, where Nicky Mermanov didn't turn his engine off when he came into the pits, and as a result they won the race, but then had a 30-second time penalty. Well, great to hear from those top drivers down there in the Parc Fermé area with John Watson. There won't be any podium presentation today because that was just the qualifying race to set the grid for tomorrow, but what an entertaining race it was. I mean, we had a brilliant race in Nogaro, but it was dry, which was it was raining, which, you know, always adds a bit of spice. But this was a dry race with pro drivers, and it was still absolutely brilliant to watch. And there you can see now the Pro Cup standing. Sandstrom and Stippler still at the top, but a point clear now of Ortelli and Vanthor, with Maximilian Buch and Alan Day still third place in that Pro Cup classifications, which is very impressive for them, despite not having perhaps the best result today. Mermanov and Rast are into 4th place because they were credited with the pro points from Nogaro of where they finished. So they finished 7th in Pro Cup in Nogaro. They've been gifted those 7 points rather than taking the Pro-Am points. I hope that's clear to you. But there is the number 1 car that will start in the number 1 place on the grid tomorrow. But that's a very good point René Rast makes. Let's brake a little bit later than I did today, because he started today 8th on the grid. By the time they got to turn 2, he was up into 3rd place. I mean, when we see the start in the highlights a little bit later on, we'll try and keep an eye out to see exactly where René Rast made up all the places, because it was an absolutely phenomenal start from him, showing exactly why he is an excellent driver and what a brilliant calibre of driver we have in this FIA GT Series field after a brilliant race at Zolder. So as the race went green, it was a battle between Rosina and Afanasiev going into the first corner. A few cars ran a little bit wide, but somehow finding his way through the middle was that black Audi on the right-hand side. René Rast managed to make his way up into 3rd position by the time they got to turn 2. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Alvaro Parent had a few attacks here and there, but getting past Mateus Stumpf down into the hairpin at turn 12 after he had to start right at the back. Caca Bueno made some places as well. Dominic Baumann getting a little bit of a slide on, and that was actually a really good move from Caca Bueno. That is some real top quality driving from the Brazilian star. And then we had some more fights all over kind of 9th and 10th positions. This was Alex Buncombe battling with Fabio Onidi, battling with Caca Bueno as well. Bueno making up another place, and Alvaro Parent following through. Then Parent managed to get past Onidi as well, down into the 2nd corner. And then a bit of out of shape from Alex Buncombe allowed Parent to get past him as well. But when he came up towards the back of 21 Sergio Jimenez, Parent misjudged it a little bit. Contact, round goes Jimenez, and unfortunately that handed a drive-through penalty to Alvaro Parent. You can see he wasn't even on the track when they made contact. A no-brainer really for the stewards, unfortunately. Laurens Vanthor managed to take the lead of the race away from Stefan Rosina towards the end of the race, and Nicky Mermanov was preparing to get ready to take over from René Rast when they came into the pits. A little skip there and a little bit of fury there from Sergio Jimenez, ending up on his backside as he tried to shut the door. That car also had door problems. Wasn't a great day for the doors. The drive-through penalty happened, and that forced the number 9 McLaren a long way down the field, unfortunately. But into the pits came René Rast. It was the battle over 2nd place. Mermanov came out just in front of Peter Cox, but Cox had his tyres up to temperature and effectively managed to scare Nicky Mermanov into making a mistake. He tried at the first chicane, not close enough. He tried then again at the 2nd chicane, not close enough. He tried at turn 12. Mermanov left his braking too late, ran wide, and the door was opened for Peter Cox to make it through into 2nd place. Jan Seyfarth had a great drive setting the fastest lap of the race on his way to a 10th place finish. Lucas Ordóñez was battling hard with Carlos Vieira all over second place in Pro-Am, and that unfortunately ended in tears when Ordóñez was spun around, Carlos Vieira poodling off. There was a problem though for Sebastian Loeb. They had to retire 6 laps from the end with a problem with the right rear, but it was the number 11 car of Laurens Vanthoor and Stefan Ortelli who took the lead of the race. They held the lead of the race. Vanthoor wins his home race. That gives them pole position for tomorrow, which should be an absolutely staggering event. Vanthoor and Ortelli on pole position for tomorrow's main race.